Well, welcome everybody joining us on the Ekahau webinar today. We've got a very exciting webinar with lots of guest speakers coming in to tell us all about Cisco Live and some gotchas and some best practices and maybe also some other unconventional tips that might come in handy if you're ever attending a large event. And also how we've got some nice considerations for designing for some very high density environments. So before we kick off the webinar, Troy, maybe you can just actually introduce all of our amazing guests that we've got on today.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a full cast on today's webinar. So we have the usual suspects, of course, Matt Starling, Stu Gumans, myself, Troy Martin, and Dale Tyler. But the stars of the show are really proper Wi-Fi geeks. From Cisco, we have Ian Prosick, Al Dumdai, and Dan Clemert. So welcome to the webinar, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much for having us.
Looking forward to it.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So before we hand it over to you guys, 'cause I know you got a incredible amount of insights to share with everyone around Cisco Live. If you are on the webinar today, and we'll be heading to Cisco Live Vegas very shortly, and you'd like to pop by the Ekahau booth, we will be located just around here in the World of Solutions at booth. I think it's 4326, something around here. Very nice and easy to find. But we actually have something special for you for attending Cisco Live if you come by the booth, which Troy is going to tell you about.
Yeah, so it's been a long tradition at Cisco Live to decorate your lanyards. So if you swing by the Ekahau booth, as Matt pointed out, you can find it on the map. You can pick up the ECSE certified ribbon and add it to your lanyard, right? So it's just a matter of showing up, adding it to your ribbon, right? Some people just have a few ribbons. Some people have a whole bunch of ribbons. But the whole idea is it encourages participation, right? There's so many different things that you can do at Cisco Live, whether it's fulfilling your certification destinies, participating in Kilted Monday. I know the Unplugged crew, which you have on a call with us today, they'll be here. They have their own lanyard. One of my favorite parts is the Capture the Flag section, where you get to challenge and try break into different networks and test your security skill set to see if you can compromise some systems. So that's always fun. And again, that ECSE certified ribbon, feel free to pick that up when you swing by the Ekahau booth and come say hi to us while you're at Cisco Live.
Yeah, and we might even have a very special t-shirt that's been made for Cisco Live as well that you can get your hands on. So with that said, we're going to pass it over now to our amazing guests from Cisco, and they're going to be taking you through some very good insights. So over to you guys.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Because you brought this up, I never, I think Cisco Live is the only place I know of where people have to be careful when they go to the restroom because of their badges.
I was
So
going to
true. I
ask,
flip it over my shoulder.
is there like a, is
So
there a
you see these guys
giveaway?
walking in there like this long? It's like, what? Okay.
Yeah,
A
is there a
loincloth.
giveaway for the, the lanyard with the most ribbons on it? Or yeah, I'm not sure if there's an award for that or not.
Yeah.
You see some folks with lots of swag and lots of decoration on there, or pieces of flair, I guess, to reference a movie reference.
Yeah. There was one. There was one year. It was like the longest. I think that we did at the Champions booth. It was. I think someone with a kilt won that last that year.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Well, so you'd mentioned, and I saw the unplugged ribbon there. Thanks for the plug there. So pun intended. But Al, Ian, and myself, we do a series, and quite frequently we work together. We've worked with this gang from Ekahau at live, and on the floor, or had them on the show. But we're out on YouTube, and so if you haven't found us yet, it's Cisco Unplugged. You can search, or if you just go to youtube.com/@getunplugged and go out there and subscribe, you'll be notified when we do go live. We do go live every other week, Wednesday morning, and we do take questions live during the show. We'll reference the show throughout here because we don't have a time, unfortunately, to cover everything in depth on this show, but we have covered a lot of stuff in various other episodes and content, hundreds of videos out there online. So, I'd encourage you to go check that out after the show, not during. Please pay attention here, but but maybe after. If you go out there, like and subscribe, you can find us out there, and we'll be referencing a lot of great content here throughout, like the Cisco Live content, UWB, open roaming, and whatnot. So, so Al,
Yeah.
we're going to talk a little bit about Cisco Live here, preparing for such a huge event. I know you work closely, and we've done episodes on this previously, but with this year we're in Las Vegas. We typically take over, or I'll say kind of convert the Mandalay and or MGM facilities during the conference. How do we get started? Do we come in, months or, in advance, or how does that usually shake out?
Well, it actually starts months in advance. In fact,
Yeah,
it probably starts many months in advance, right?
sure.
Uh, but every year there's always some changes. Fundamentally, what we do is we take over all of MGM's access points in these areas, right? So we'll transfer
Yeah.
their access points onto our controllers, and then we'll light them up with our configurations. Now, every year there's some changes. Some of
Sure.
the biggest changes are things like if MGM renames their APs, because a lot of times we have things preset that says, okay, when this AP comes on, I know what its name is, therefore I know its location, therefore I know how I want to configure it. The team has about 2 days to transfer all this stuff, right, and get it up and running. And there's another conference that happens, big conference that happens right in front of us.
Hmm.
And sometimes that works out well, sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes we can use that conference to sort of do a little bit of tuning and kind of prep
Don't
work.
don't tell them though.
Well,
They're,
it's
the guinea
actually a
pig.
win-win, right? They win because
Yeah,
they get
true.
they get
The
the
enhanced
benefit.
experience, the high density experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a team of guys that just are really good at this. And
Yes.
in fact, if you want to meet them, to Dan's point, one of those episodes we do every year, we do an episode with the NOC team
Hmm.
at Cisco Live. And these are the real, brain
Heroes.
trust behind all this, right? But there's a tremendous amount of organization that goes into that. So
Yeah.
and then at some point they'll pull the trigger, and it's the witching hour, so to speak, and all the APs move over to our controllers, and we'll light it up with our controllers. It happens pretty quickly, but now there's a lot of tuning to do, right? And so Cisco has a team of people from Cisco Network Academy that help us also, right? So this is one of those things that Cisco uses, kind of I would say it's a win-win for Cisco, because we use the Network Academy students to help gather data, but they get experience with Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah,
And doing site surveys.
we're actually doing a training session for them on the Sunday. So
Oh,
yeah, but we do that every year to on the Sunday before Cisco Live starts. We run a training session, myself, Troy, Stu, and train the Academy students on how to run around and collect some data with Ekahau. And then what's always nice is that you'll be on the Ekahau booth, and then you'll just see at the corner of your eye, you'll see a few of them walking around with their
yep.
iPads and sidekicks, collecting
Right.
data later on in the show.
Yeah. And throughout the show, they're walking around, and it's not so much that they're doing, the site survey anymore. They're in Spectrum Expert kind of mode, right? With the sidekick, and they're looking for interference, right? Because unfortunately, there are people that will bring interferers, even things like CWs, carrier wave type of interferers. We had some WiMAX interference at one point. And I will warn you, if you're a vendor and you're coming and you bring Wi-Fi and we find it, we will burn your device in front of everybody and lock you up in handcuffs and take you out. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, maybe that was a bit extreme.
Tough.
But no, we do try to hunt those down and try to minimize that, because that has a big impact, obviously. Uh, I'll show you some, when we get into the slides here, you'll see kind of the effect that that can happen with interferers like that. So, but yeah, so we've got about 2 days to make all that happen.
Wow.
Get everything moved over, get everything tuned up. If there's an area or two, which is less now than it used to be. So over the course of the last 10 years, we've been working with the MGM as a whole, the venues out there, upgrading them. And MGM has a number of partners also that they work with, that we've been working with the partners to upgrade the venues to get good designs. So now, used to be when we would go out, we would set up a bunch of gear, right? And we'd probably have to place a bunch of access points on portable stands, and it was a lot bigger deal. Now we can just take their design, because it's our design effectively, or it's some form of our design, and reuse it, just pull in the APs and reuse it. So the one thing I would say about it is we are it from a modernization standpoint. We're going to talk about this a little bit as we go further down the slides. It is not Wi-Fi 6 yet. Or sorry, 6E yet. It's Wi-Fi 6, but not Wi-Fi 6E. No 6 gigahertz in that.
Yeah, I already saw a comment or question about that, and I know we were going to cover that during this presentation here today. But I mean, that's a very common question we get all the time. Why aren't we using the latest and greatest everywhere throughout the conference center?
Well, and there's really it's a timing thing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're getting in a couple days before the show and you're taking over the existing APs that are there, with some exception in the large venues for the high density presentations for like keynotes and stuff like that, it's quite hard to replace a whole AP infrastructure in that time, right?
Yeah, and from the MGM standpoint, what happened was we basically the Wi-Fi 6 access points, when they did the next refresh, the Wi-Fi 6E access points hadn't come out yet. And the other thing is they didn't want to replace all the antennas that were up there, right? And the antennas were not capable of 6 gigahertz. So what's the point of deploying 6 gigahertz APs?
Yeah, because you don't have the antennas. Yep.
When we designed MGM, the vast majority of the APs or antenna are external antennas with directional antennas, right? Very little of it is just omni antennas. There's maybe a few areas in some smaller conference rooms and that sort of stuff, but even a lot of the hallways are done with directional antennas, right?
Sure.
So
nice.
It's a very everything was intended, right? There's nothing that's sort of left to chance on that.
Yeah, very intentional for sure.
But so because of the antennas that were up there, it didn't make sense to go forward with 6E APs yet, the 6 gigahertz APs. And they were just coming out when we started the refresh, maybe haven't actually launched yet. So certainly on the next cycle, and we've had conversations about this already going into the next generation, will absolutely be 6 gigahertz there. And we have some newer, much better. In fact, stand by one second.
That's okay.
This was not sitting here for this, but we have much better, newer equipment now for that, right? So we have a newer version of stadium antenna. This is the 9179F. That allows us to use multiple steerable beams off of this. So this will absolutely be a game changer, and has 6 gigahertz in it, right? So this will absolutely be a game changer for when we get this into the NVM.
You're getting kind of faint away from your mic a little bit there, Al.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I know another question we get typically is, how do we get so many clients or encourage the clients to join the Wi-Fi for the show? And I think open roaming is a big part of that. And that's, I think, where you're going here with this and next. Yeah.
So a couple of things. So for those of you that at the WBA conference, thank you for the work you're doing with open roaming. And I had to talk a couple days ago with Matt Schwartz, who is I think he's still the chairman of that, or the kind of the lead of that, or has been for many years. I don't know if he's still doing that. But he was telling me that they've gotten some good participation from some of the other carriers now. I won't mention names or anything like that, right? But it looks like all the major carriers are now on board with open roaming. And so this is going to even make open roaming more effective. But basically, just in case people aren't familiar with open roaming is a technology that allows you to use your Wi-Fi similar to how you use your cell phone. I like to say, you get off a plane, Troy, you came to Dallas, you got off the plane, you didn't go, okay, I'm in Dallas, I'm going to select AT&T, or I'm going to select Verizon or whatever.
Yeah.
Your phone knows what to select, it knows what towers to select. You don't have to turn on.
It's easy.
Yeah, easy. You don't have to do anything besides hit the power button. Well, that's the way open roaming is. You don't have to select the SSID. You don't have to put in credentials. All that's stored in your device, and it automatically finds that SSID, and unless it knows another SSID that it has credentials for, it will automatically join, not just know about it, it will join seamlessly, and it's a .1x. So we can make this WPA3 encryption and all that sort of stuff, right? So it can be a very secure but seamless experience for the clients. And so one of the things that we do is we also offer, just like you could have carrier type credentials, we also offer Cisco credentials. So when you get the Cisco app for Cisco Live,
Mhm.
you will have an option to opt in to open roaming, in which case it will put a credential on your phone. It's called a profile on your phone. And then you'll be able to use that profile to authenticate anywhere across the venue. In fact, you can use that profile anywhere to authenticate it that has open roaming that hasn't disallowed it. For example, when I go to Cisco Live, I haven't updated, I've got a different phone than last time. When I get that, when I come here, I have open roaming in my house. I see Cisco Live actually advertised on my phone because it will use the Cisco Live credential that I got from the Cisco Live app on my home network if I want, right? So it's a fairly mobile credential. So we do that because that really, all these venues, the cellular's okay, but it kind of in and out. These are, a lot of areas here where it's not great. So we set that up where it's just an automated experience for our guests when they come in. We also
And one of the
offer
things, Al, that
discount.
often
Yeah.
comes up, right, and this has been in presentations over the years, is getting people on the network is actually fundamental to reducing probe noise, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's a
So,
great point. That's right.
Saves on battery on devices too. They're, as a
yeah.
result, they're not constantly probing, and yep.
Yeah, that's a
And
great
then,
point.
less trouble tickets too, as people are, not having trouble connecting to the network for whatever reason, or what are my credentials, those types of questions.
Now, the one thing I would say, because we're talking, this talk is about high density, we're using Cisco Live as an example, is if you're going to offer open roaming in a high density environment, though, you need to make sure that you've designed for that, right? Now, these, like I mentioned early on, pretty much everything in that venue is directional antennas. We've been very
Yeah.
intent with the design. But if that's not the case, open roaming is .1x, right? So every time you authenticate, and the other thing you want to make sure you have on is 11R, right? Because you don't want to have to do radius requests that go all the way back to the carriers for authentication every time you roam, right? But so if you have a high density location, but you haven't done you haven't designed for that, then what can happen is you can start getting packet loss on the radius packets. You can drop radius packets, and pretty soon you're in a case where you're just doing retransmissions after retransmissions, and a lot of your airtime is just taken up with authentication, and it kind of collapses. So it's a great technology, but before you just go say, "Hey, I've got a high density venue, let's light this up," you want to make sure you've designed for that. So, okay. All right, so maybe some notes. I made just kind of some quick notes about Cisco Live. It's about 2,300 access points. So when we bring this across, there's about 2,300 access points that we have to deal with. We put them on maps, like in a Catalyst Center. So that's our tool that we use to manage the networks with. In most cases, again, we have all of this prepared ahead of time. So when we bring the APs across, we already know where these APs are going to go on the maps, and they're called planning APs, right? So we're able to get these on the map fairly quickly. We're able to get these assigned to the right profiles, and so they broadcast the right SSADs, have the right RRM parameters, radio resource management parameters from the very beginning. And then after that is when we start to actually go out and tune, and we'll make some potential changes. But the good news especially with MGM is this is not the first time we've been there, right? So we go there time and time again, and so we have a pretty good history on what works and what doesn't work there. Okay. I mentioned this before, the AP density and the use of directional antennas. So most of the venue, most of it was completed up to about 4 years ago. We're still doing updates. Probably the last time we were there was 2024. We go to San Diego every fourth year. But the last year so in 2024, we had updated the arena in Mandalay Bay. with some. In fact, we used at that time the 9104s because we didn't have the new. Which the 9104s, if you remember that API held up, is similar to that, except it does not have, so it's got two 5 gigahertz steerable beams built in, but it doesn't have 6 gigahertz because that wasn't available when we updated that. Okay, and I mentioned before one of the reasons why we don't have 6 gigahertz is we used a lot of the directional antennas up there that were 5 gigahertz only. So we talked about this already with the pre-built the names and how we move things across. Catalyst Center is what we use to do all of the visibility, all of the management, all the control. We've got some new capability now in Catalyst Center that allows us to do what we call per device config. So we can really configure everything on the controller from Catalyst Center now fully, which is kind of new for this go around. There's 2 guest SSIDs. There's one open roaming and one, if you want to call it PSKA or SAE. This I think is kind of interesting. We only do WPA3 now. So there's no more WPA2. Everything we've done is WPA3 now we do have some WPA2 for like some very special SSIDs that we use that are non-guest SSIDs. And I think, and Matt, you probably know this as well as I do, but I think you guys actually loaned some of these to us. We have 3 sidekicks in use, and this is what we give to the Network Academy students, and they'll go looking for people to arrest. So, all right, and devices to burn. Okay, all right. So and we talked about 6 gigahertz, and certainly the same applies for Wi-Fi 7, right?
Yeah.
Why do we not have it pervasively across there? We will, but we are really using MGM's APs. They will, but as every venue there's a refresh cycle. And on the refresh cycle, we are not at Wi-Fi 7 across that venue yet. We may find a few areas. In fact, last year, I think we lit up, if I remember right, we lit up a few areas with our own APs that were Wi-Fi 7 just so we could show some stats and get a place people could go to get a Wi-Fi 7 experience.
I also call out, Al, like if you look at like Cisco Live in Europe as an example, like that's not a venue that it has, we do have the option to go in there and change some things. They do have an existing Cisco network, but for example, we ran 9179s in the keynote, right?
Yeah.
And select areas and Whisper Suites and world the meeting village was
World
all
Solutions.
modern
World
hardware,
Solutions.
right? So
Yeah.
Depends where we are too.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and those are the areas that was what I was going to say, Ian, too, is like with the trusses and the stuff that can kind of come down, you can bolt on your new latest and greatest directional APs, and those are easy swaps. But obviously, like for this example, you're not going to be able to go into the ceiling and enclosures and whatever and upgrade in a day all the APs and all the breakout rooms.
And you mentioned ceiling trusses. That's actually a good point. So one of the things that happens is when we do the design, because we primarily work out of the Mandalay Bay Arena and the Grand Garden Arena, the MGM Grand Garden Arena. That's where our keynote is. And in the MGM Grand Garden Arena, particularly, there's a big stage set up in the middle of the floor, and there's usually a truss work of lights that gets installed specifically for this. When you work with the MGM guys, it's the boxing match configuration, right? Although I haven't seen any of these guys box yet, but that may be coming yet. We'll see. But the truss truss structures that we put, and it's not always a square. Sometimes these things look like pinwheels and all sorts of stuff, right? And by the way, a lot of times there's big video screens all around kind of the outside that are lit up. We will analyze that ahead of time and make decisions on, do we want to put APs and antennas on that structure before it goes up? And most times we will load that structure with access points and antennas to compensate for the blockage that we're going to get when they go up, right? So, but otherwise, if the if we're not putting a truss up, there's no reason for us to have to modify it anymore because the designs are pretty thorough now. Okay.
I'm just showing a couple of pictures here. I'll just
Oh
hijack
yeah.
the screen.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Right.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
so this is from the Grand Garden Arena, right? And a couple of years back, but you can see there's a 9104. There you go on the truss work, and this is 2513s, two of them, right, with the dart breakout, right? So just as some examples of what that looks like in practice. And so I know you've got some details of the coverage mapping in that facility as well, as a result of
Yeah.
this,
There's that
particular
big
thing.
display we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah. That's
And
perfect.
oh, sorry, Ian.
go ahead,
ahead.
Dan.
I was just going to make a comment, a pro tip here, as we've discussed on Unplugged previously in the past too. Is be careful if you're up there in the skywalks too, if there's any
Fireworks.
pyrotechnics or fireworks ever, so you don't want to be up there when those go off.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Absolutely.
on one of the unplugged sessions, Matt Schwartz was talking about at one of the, I think it was at one of
Super
the
Bowl.
Super Bowls. Yeah. He was up on the catwalks when he got notified they're about to light off the fireworks right next to him. So, um, but yeah, so this is so for the most part, like you're saying, Ian, it's we don't have to make adjustments, but you can see when you start hanging stuff like this in the ceiling, all that does affect the RF design, and so we do compensate for that by hanging additional access points to cover this. And these, I mean, there's a lot of streaming activity that goes on here. We push out a lot of data. I don't remember. Do we have a slide on the exact number? I don't remember. Let me No, you're good. I'm trying to get out of there. We go. So I can get back
Maybe
to
I'm getting a little ahead of myself, and just tell me to be patient if that's the case. But I was just wondering,
Yep.
how do you guys think through capacity designs when you have that many people all showing up into the keynote floor at the same time? Like, how many client devices do you assume are going to be connecting per radio? And what are your thoughts around that?
Well, for this particular venue, we're generally thinking one or two, right? Because you can't take a whole lot in there. Although,
Per
in all
person,
fairness,
you're
I
talking
walk,
about.
yeah, per person, yeah. I will walk in with a laptop oftentimes and just sit someplace up in the upper deck and scan Wi-Fi and stuff like that. But most people don't walk in there with a laptop, right? And it's back to the kind of the pro tip thing. If you're attending, wear comfortable shoes because these venues are spread out, right? And you may have to do a lot of walking, and you may also get into wear comfortable pants because when you get into these venues, there's not a lot of leg room. Right. And so to the point of like pulling out, two, three different devices or something like that, it's kind of in the keynote that doesn't happen very much. But the thing to bear in mind is it's not just the seats when we do the design; it's the floor is full of participants also, right? So we have to make sure we've designed for the capacity on the floor, and we typically start with kind of a number of seats per radio, and kind of the going number is about 100 seats per radio ish. And then if we think there's areas where that needs to be beefed up a little bit, maybe a little bit more density, we might do something like that. If we know there's some VIP areas, we may put something local to the VIP areas, that sort of thing. One of the big things that happens throughout that show, am I sharing my screens again? Just
You are, yeah. We're
okay.
stuck on the.
Okay.
There we go. Yep.
Okay. One of the big things that tends to happen during these shows is we will take the sidekick out and again look for interference, even in this Grand Garden Arena. And one of the things we're looking for is just other devices that are probing. And I was talking to Johannes, who's kind of that's the keynote is his baby from a Wi-Fi standpoint, and he'll be walking around the arena looking for anything that not just like what you consider standard interference, but anything that probes, because the philosophy is if it probes, then it can communicate. If it can communicate, it can take up a lot of bandwidth. And we need that entire bandwidth in that arena. So he's looking for anything, not just non-Wi-Fi, but any other Wi-Fi emitters out there that are not part of his design.
Hey, Al, we have a question that's, I think, a
Yeah.
good one here and timely is around RxSOP. So, first of all, what is that? And do we
Okay.
use that in venues like this, especially when we're talking about the Garden Arena and the keynotes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit of religion with this, as well as a little bit of uh, math and design. Okay. So we're going to dabble in both areas. So there's really two. So what is our RxSOP? RxSOP is when Wi-Fi can detect the preamble of another packet, it has to stop its back-off counter, right? So it basically it's a Wi-Fi is very kind, so it won't transmit over the top of any other Wi-Fi signal that I can hear. Well, you can imagine if you put, you know, 50,000 people in an arena or, 100,000 people in a stadium, you hear a lot of people talking, right? There's a lot of radios out there, not to mention all the other access points and all that sort of stuff. And so, and if you think of the laws of physics, right? So just free space, it's 6 dB doubles your distance. So what happens is if you think of the tail, there's a whole lot of people that are covered out here. If you think this is distance, this is power, right? There's a whole lot of people that are covered out here in the tail of this signal. And so that can cause a lot of problems because they will effectively lock up the channel because we can detect their preamble. So we use something called SOP, start a packet, that basically what we say is, okay, if I hear something below a certain threshold, I'm not going to stop my timer, right? If it's Wi-Fi, so first thing is I got to detect the preamble. But if it's interference, that's a different thing we're going to deal with. That's a different setting. But SOP is other Wi-Fi. And if I detect that preamble, instead of just if I detect it at all, I'm going to say if I detect it above a certain threshold, then I'm going to hit my back off time. Otherwise, I'm just going to ignore it and talk over it. Right. So that's fundamentally that's what the SOP is. Now there's another one called BSS now German BSS coloring OP anyway that would allow us to basically say, okay, if you're not in my BSS, in other words, you're not on my AP, then I'm going to apply SOP. If you're in my AP, I'm not going to apply SOP. Now, this gets into a bit of a religion. There's not a there's pros and cons to both. I would say it's probably not a huge difference from a design standpoint whether you use one versus the other. But the BSS coloring, what it tends to do. So one of the things that SOP can help us with a little bit is roaming and sticky clients, right? So if I'm in this cell and I move to another cell and I want to stick to this client and I go below that SOP threshold, I stop responding, that means the client's going to be forced to hand off. Now, is that a good way to hand off? No, right? We don't want to do that. That's kind of like pulling the emergency brake on the train, right? But it's there, it's in place. When we use the OBSS or the OBSS coloring, then what happens is if I'm in that cell, I keep responding. So now as I walk off, I'm still responding, and it really hasn't I don't have that break anymore from a train standpoint. However, there is some value in terms of, that I don't have to worry about that I've set the threshold to the wrong location because I still get to see clients in my cell. So there's kind of two different ways to attack the SOP. I typically tend to fall in the just traditional SOP only camp, but I'm not going to say that using the OBS SPD is, the wrong thing to do either. So, okay. Does that answer the question?
No, I think that's a great explanation. I think we also want to talk a little bit about, I saw a question on wayfinding or whatever. I think we wanted to maybe mention ultra-wideband a bit here. And then I think we want to talk about how we want to address when we do find interferers. And I know we've got like 20 minutes left here, so trying to be mindful of time.
All right. Yeah. So actually, let's do this. Let's flip through some of these slides real quick because they might actually answer some of the questions. And then let's come back to what you just said, Dan. Does that work?
That sounds good. Yeah, I'm just concerned we're on like slide.
So I'm afraid I'm not going to get through because we got some good discussions on interference and stuff like that too. I think here at the end. So these are kind of just some of the numbers from open roaming. Cisco Live is the PSK or actually SAE because everything's WPA3, SSID. And so you can see the numbers on that. So about 11,000 clients at this point in time. This is a snapshot in time. There's generally about 20 some odd thousand people that attend Cisco Live. You can see the client counts here over time. So about looks like on that particular.
And this was
like
from
Tuesday.
Amsterdam, so a little smaller show than the
Okay.
US.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Ah, good. Okay. All right. So that's actually probably pretty close to the capacity or the number of folks that attended at
Yep.
Amsterdam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is one of the things that we do. So this is what we were talking about. This is a picture of part of the conference room floor, and this is just a snapshot of the Ekahau tool. When we go out with the Sidekick and we collect the spectrum analysis, and you can see there was on this far channel down here we had some really bad interference. And it looks like it was a CW interfere that happened over this particular location, and so we were able to identify and pinpoint that fairly quickly using the Sidekick for that. So, and then came the handcuffs and the burning. No, just kidding. So when we talk about, I'm trying to put a plug in for the guys so because I mean that is a bad thing. It happens every year. We get people bringing in rogue APs. So Matt, don't bring your AP in again this year, okay? We just hate to make examples.
Yeah.
So here's the design. This is GGA. This is actually the one of the current designs of that floor, right? That we showed you the pictures of a minute ago, and you're seeing just primary coverage here, and you can see that I've got the color bars set to -67, but most of this is in probably the -55 to 60 range from a primary coverage standpoint. So we have really good primary coverage across the whole thing. And some of the heights on this are probably 60, 65 feet high, something like that. So generally, when you get into those higher ceilings, it becomes more difficult to use overhead seating. Now, I think hopefully most people will agree that overhead is a better way to go if you can do it, because it's very directional. It's very capable, like you're lighting up an area. And I've done plots before where you can, you can put an underseat AP over here, and then put a bunch of people around it, and then you can do an overhead over here, and then look over here for interference from this one, and look over here from interference from this one, and you'll see a lot less interference from the overhead on the other side of the arena than you will from the underseat, right? So if we can do overhead, we typically will try to do overhead. Now, but the big benefit for us is this is the third. So Ekahau has the ability to look at things like tertiary signal strength. So this is the coverage from the third strongest AP, right? So we have a much lower level of signal strength as we get further over. In other words, our signal's decaying much quicker. Why is that important? Sticky clients, right? Because one of the challenges with a high density environment is even distribution of clients across your APs. APs are generally on different channels. And if you get everybody trying to congregate on one AP, well, that's not that they're not going to have a good experience. And so if we can break this up into smaller cells, that's going to help us just from an overall coverage, but it's also going to help us from a roaming standpoint, right? Because when people walk in here, they don't walk in and necessarily just turn on their devices for the first time. Most of the time they walk in, their Wi-Fi on their device is running and they're roaming across here. If they get stuck, everybody's going to be on that same AP at the entrance, right? So it's very important that we use that sort of technology from a design standpoint. And here's again some of those pictures, right? This is the previous generation of access points. Again, you can see this is actually 2 generations old. It's a separate AP and antenna. So this picture is a little bit old, but you can see again it's a very specific design. We've got some that are shining up into the bowl and the upper bowl. Some of them are shining down into the kind of the medium or lower bowl below that. But again, very specific spot coverage. And there's that big display that we had. All right. I'm going to, so I think we want to talk a little about interference in general and just kind of locating interference. I think, Ian, you've done some work with this, not just in like Cisco Live, but in general.
It's an ongoing theme. Yes.
Yeah. And some of your other stadiums.
Weird and wonderful locations where we've got interference problems, right? And so we're not necessarily just talking about Wi-Fi interference here. We're talking about things that transmit. And so tools of the trade, right? We talked a little bit about Sidekick and how that's important. You see in the background there, still got my good old Cisco Spectrum Expert, which is getting kind of aged. It doesn't support 6 gigs, but hey, it still runs. the tiny SA Ultra, which is a handy little tool. I've got other, $20,000, $30,000 spectrum analyzers and stuff, but they don't get pulled out for field work that often. They're just not portable enough unless you got a cart. So that being the case, just some examples of some problems that we're starting to see more commonly, and I've been running into. This is actually sent to me from a customer here in Alberta, the province I'm sitting in right now, and this is actually, them dealing with one of our favorite manufacturers here of an espresso machines, our machine. So this is actually transmitting. It has a prox sensor on it. So back in the day, we used to do like proximity based on infrared, right? And for whatever reason, I guess just probably cost, a lot of manufacturers are embedding prox sensors in their lighting systems and in their in this particular example, a coffee maker, to determine your proximity to the machine. So it kind of comes on and wakes up. Well, that prox sensor is in the Uni 3 band. It's a radar transmitter. It's an FM CW radar transmitter. So it shows up, as you can see here on the controller and in Catalyst Center, as a continuous TX, and typically just completely obliterating these channels when it's in operation. And it's sitting there, it's powered up. It's going to be doing this, and you can see the impact of it on the channel.
Wow.
So you get really, really poor air quality reports as an example, and the infrastructure, which is kind of the tip off. Now, fortunately, in this particular case, the manufacturer allows you to go in for whatever reason. You can turn this off, right? Perhaps if you've got a need not just for Wi-Fi to work properly, but if you have a co-location problem or an area where this doesn't make sense to have on, you can actually turn it off. So this is something we need to consider. Here's an example of me chasing the same thing. We didn't know what it was. This is actually at a stadium here or back home in Vancouver. We're getting ready for some FIFA games, and didn't know what to make of this interference. And so, one of the things, again, back to my toolkit of stuff to break out when you're looking for this kind of thing is, highly directional antennas. Right. So Sidekick is great, but there's a place and a time when I need a super high gain antenna so I can zoom in on like 2 degrees or 3 degrees of signal. When you're dealing with like a 4 million square foot facility, like the stadium, it's just so awesome to just get into a box and right at the edge of the box where you can see the whole venue, point the antenna around and go, okay, yeah, it's coming from here. And typically on the controller and the management tools, you'll get like APs reporting it in an area of interest, and you can start there. But this helps narrow it down. And it just happened to be, this is another.
Hey, Ian.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Will that dish fit around your neck here? I think that would make a nice chain. And I'm monitoring
like 25
the comments
pounds, yes.
here. Somebody suggested you wear that to live.
It's pretty big.
Yeah, it might strain your neck.
Yeah, you'll end up with
I also am enjoying the comments. For me, it's an easy choice between coffee and Wi-Fi. I don't drink coffee, but I'm enjoying seeing the comments. I guess put in the comments if you would select one or the other, which one it is. Sorry, go ahead.
Totally. I'm a Diet Coke, Dr. Pepper kind of. Dr. Pepper, I think, is the official drink of IT.
I thought you were a Jello
no fancy machine required for that.
Well, so Jello Al is my other diet, right? So I alternate between Diet Coke and Jello is how I operate.
We'll be going out for steak, and Ian will be saying, "Do they have Jello?"
Yeah, exactly.
Steak, Diet Coke, and Jello. There you go.
Yeah, Dan's seen my expense reports over the years.
Yes, exactly.
So in any case, same kind of problem. You'll see here on the Tiny SA, this wandering spur, this transmission that's up and down across the entire band. Actually, entire band. This is the upper part of Uni 3. If you look at the stop and start positions on the spectrum analyzer, and this happens to be one of these proximity sensors in the coffee machine. Turned out it was actually the building's own executive suite where this was running. Right. So, it's a challenge. Not just coffee makers, but proximity sensors in lighting systems, in conference rooms and other areas are becoming a thing as people consider green buildings and, reducing your power consumption. Here's an example of what that actually looks like. You can actually see the impact of this on the top end of the band as you get close to it. It's basically completely wiping out all of that. And it's because this is a continuous transmitter and it's frequency unstable, it is causing an energy detect on all of the infrastructure, right? Which basically blocks that channel from operation, right? So you got massive issues here that you need to really address really quickly and get on top of, right? So, um, sometimes you'll see this reported as a video camera. Some of the classifiers can be quite old. Sometimes it'll show up as a continuous transmitter, but just be aware of the different things there. I'm going to just skip along down to another kind of interesting example. And we talked a little bit about probes, devices that are probing all the time and trying to get a handle on them. The One of my customers and good old friend here, Jeff Armstrong at the University of British Columbia, sent me this screenshot to help back up part of this story, which was they were trying to track down, excessive probes coming from a particular area in their campus. And this isn't necessarily Cisco Live related, but the analogy is the same. Thought it was interesting, right? So what is going on? I got all these 11B probes just flooding the channel on 2.4. And yeah, 2.4, but there's still people using 2.4 for certain things, and you want to have just good hygiene if you've got it turned on, right? Turns out it happened to be the embedded chipsets in all the Speed Queen washing machines. And unfortunately, there's a default behavior in these devices that causes this situation, and you've got a room full of them. You end up with just a massive probe flood that completely, blocks a channel. So there are certain things you could do perhaps to try and suppress this, but nonetheless, that's a challenge. So finding probing devices, finding devices that are causing you problems in your network or excessive probes is something you want to put on your radar for sure. And an event like Cisco Live, certainly we take that pretty seriously.
And just to be clear, the laundromat is a high density area on Saturday mornings.
Absolutely.
So we do design for that.
Yeah, and it sits right below all the student rooms, right? So I mean, yeah. Not a Cisco Live example, but an example of a situation where you got to keep on top of it. And you know what? Who would have thought, right? This is a washing machine. So
that's right. And that's a lot of times it's like you'll be like, where's this coming from? It's like, yeah,
absolutely.
So Dan, you want to talk a little bit about ultra wideband? Is that the other topic you wanted to?
I mean, maybe, yeah, and maybe we just bring up the slides here and highlight the end. I mean, we can also, I guess,
sure, I can pull it back up.
Do a plug for our upcoming episode or our recent ultra wideband episode we did with Dave. I mean, that was if we don't have full time to cover that here, we can point people to that as well. But go ahead, quick, Al. Maybe we got a couple minutes, and then we got to wrap here.
Sure. And Matt, did you have anything you from an ultra wideband that you had kind of lined up or anything like that? I know you were looking at maybe.
Yeah.
Like we think of wayfinding in the world of solutions, right?
Yes.
As an application. We've actually shown this at Cisco Live Amsterdam. And so how do we do wayfinding? We've done BLE in years past. And of course, if we got the opportunity to put some more modern APs in there, ultra wideband becomes an option. So,
So
quick comment on what is ultra wideband. So just because not everybody may know what we're talking about here. So in the Cisco access points in certain models, we put in an ultra wideband chip. And basically what that allows us to do is do very precise location. And the reason why it's precise is in the past, you can think of Wi-Fi as something that's RSSI based. You remember we talked earlier about that kind of 6 dB half distance, right? So you can think of if I have 6 dB of variation on my signal and I'm 10 feet away, well, that's 10 feet of accuracy. If I have 6 dB variation and I'm 100 feet away, well, that's 50 feet and plus or minus 50 feet of accuracy, right? So it's the accuracy for RSSI is very dependent on signal strength, proximity, all of that sort of stuff. So along comes something called fine time measurements, which is a Wi-Fi standard that is time-based. So it's ranging based on time. So we measure the round trip time. The challenge with that is it uses up capacity because it's in band from Wi-Fi. So we use that for things like automatic AP location and that sort of stuff. Then comes ultra wideband. So if you think of what defines my accuracy for time-based measurements, it's the sampling rate, right? How quickly do I? Because if I'm sampling really slow and the signal comes in between samples, well, I'm not that precise. So the faster I sample, the more accurate it is. What drives my sampling rate? The bandwidth, right? So Wi-Fi bandwidths are generally 20, 40 megahertz, something like that, maybe 80. At ultra wideband, you can tell by the name, it's 500 megahertz, right? So that means my sampling clock is much higher, which means my accuracy is much better, and I get down into the sub meter. Even so, generally, when we're planning with this, we're talking in the centimeter range. Of course, and Matt, I think your tool does a great job of showing like what happens if I don't have access from multiple locations, and what's that error look like and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so in AR Pro Online now, what you're able to do, if you've placed any of the more modern Cisco access points that have support for these additional radios, you can see the Bluetooth and the ultra wideband radios, and then we have a visualization to give you an idea of what level of accuracy you might achieve. And if you take a look at this bottom left-hand corner where we haven't got quite as many radios in this area that are audible, you can see that the positioning accuracy kind of drops off a little bit here. But if I was to add a couple of extra additional ones around in this area, you'll start to see that positioning accuracy is going to get improved because you've got those radios that can hear each other. So it's nice that in Ekahau now that you are able to plan your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth, your ultra wideband, your cellular coverage. If you wanted to visualize kind of like the radiation patterns from these radios as well, you're able to see these in 3D to give you a bit of an understanding if you maybe want to use some of these like directional antennas in your designs. And since we're talking about the directional antennas, before we whilst we were planning the webinar, we did mention around in the world of solutions, the quite highly directional antennas that you guys use for the deployment in the world of solutions, and that they're deployed at typically around 45 feet. I have to check my notes since I'm a imperial metric guy, which is about 50, just under 15 meters. And so what I actually have built out here is the world of solutions floor plan in Ekahau AI Pro Online. And what I've done is I've actually designed or like placed some of the 3802E access points that you've got there with that type of different types of antennas to see kind of what the coverage would look like from placing AP at that those kind of heights. And if we looked at that kind of versus if you had an Omni at that height, the spread of that signal is significantly higher. So when you're thinking about such a high density area where not only do we want to be able to provide the coverage, but also thinking about capacity and roaming, the way that you guys do the design is with these antennas, the 21.5, 2513s pointing like directly down. And that's what creates this much tighter cell shape. So when you're moving between the radios, the access points, it's more encouraging to roam, less channel interference, and still providing that coverage and connectivity that you guys would need at such a busy environment.
Yeah,
and
nice.
Yeah,
And,
nice.
and when you click in there, can you see what sort of accuracies are you measuring with that, or what you predicting with that?
So what sort of accuracy for
Yeah,
the ultra wideband?
yeah, for the ultra wideband. Yeah.
Yeah, so the ultra wideband, when we are looking at the positioning accuracy, it's basically if I can go into our inspect tool and I can put it on the map, and you can see in this kind of like top right hand corner, it tells you the accuracy levels that you're likely to achieve. But we do have some Cisco profiles built into our um, requirement areas. So you can pick between asset tracking and wayfinding, which is based on the profiles from you guys
Right.
as well.
Yeah, and that's important, I guess, because asset tracking is basically the device's beaconing. We put a effectively a beacon on the device, and the infrastructure calculates the location. And smart devices, we're beaconing, and the smart device calculates the location effectively.
Yeah,
But
so we're at the top of the hour here. Before we lose everyone, I just
yeah,
wanted to pull up our last slide here. I guess that's just as we're looking at live, we've got a couple of sessions that we'd recommend, and then follow-ups here. Do you want to share, Ian or Al? Do you want me to?
good. Uh, I can, or Ian can.
Let's see here.
See who gets it up first.
All
Where's
right.
my? Got too many windows open here.
Can you see this?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, you got
So
it.
we've got a
Okay.
few sessions here. Ian is doing a session there, 2049 at the top. Highly recommend these sessions. Al's got a session, 2054. We're doing an unplugged session here. We're having the Titans of Wireless together on one stage, taking your questions live. That's BRKEWN 1012. So encourage you to register for those sessions. If you are out at live, we'd love to see you in
Quick plug
person.
for that last session, just
Yep.
because that's going to have, if you guys know guys like Jerome Henry, Matt
Yeah.
Schwartz, Josh Sir, Simone, these guys, they've all written books. They're all
Yes.
like whatever you call top speakers.
Yeah,
I
distinguished
mean,
Hall of Fame
these guys got
speakers.
more
Yes.
accolades.
Yes.
Any one of them has more accolades than most companies, right?
Yep.
And they're all going to be on stage. It's the first time we've ever had them all on stage at one time. So
Yep.
it's going to be amazing sessions. So.
And thank you everyone for tuning in here today and checking us out. If you want to reach out to us, you can get a hold of us through the YouTube channel here. You can send us email at getunplugged@cisco.com if you'd like to follow up. And we hope to see you live out at live. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, come heckle us.
Yes.
Yeah. Come ask questions in that session. Yeah.
And thank
Jim
you, Matt,
I see
Troy,
Jim's picture. Jim will
Stu.
be on the
Thanks.
stage with us. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt, Troy, Stu, for having us. Really appreciate the continued partnership.
Yeah, our pleasure. We can hang on for a few minutes because there's a couple of questions that come into the Q&A. But I did have a question for you guys, since you're very distinguished attending the Cisco Live events. Are there any kind of like unofficial tips or things that you would recommend for some people maybe attending Cisco Live for the first or second or third time? I can think of one that kind of caught me out is around getting coffee. On your way to Cisco Live, there's a Starbucks that you initially walk past in the morning that can have a pretty long queue to get to, but there might be another one that you could find that would have a little bit of a shorter queue to get to.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. I think some other ones are, choose what you're carrying around all day wisely. If you carry the laptop and you don't end up needing it, your shoulder, you're going to need to visit the chiropractor or something later on. Al had mentioned the walkable shoes or the comfort shoes. Bring a water bottle. I think we've tend to have done away with plastics and disposable, water cups and things along those lines. It's just it's very dry out there in the desert, and a lot of people are partying into the night too. So make sure you stay hydrated.
Hydration.
And I cannot attend a Cisco Live in the US without like a I don't know if you call it chapstick or like a lip balm or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
Chapstick. Yes.
I'm probably
Yes.
applying this about 10 times a day.
In
Yes.
Vegas.
It's
Yes.
so dry out there. Yep.
You know what?
Yeah.
It's Las Vegas. Bring cash and lots of it.
Yes, cash is
a good
still
one.
king there.
Yeah, I would say the other thing is build your schedule early. Events fill up. And then what happens is you think you're going to go to this one, then it fills up, and then you're like, well, okay, then I'm going to go to that one. You end up sort of like bouncing around and you don't get into, and then you're late for the only one you get. It's like if you build your schedule and sign up early, you can get to the events that you want to do. So the better you plan your session, the more effective it will be for you, right?
That's a great point. Good tip. Yeah, I know it takes a few minutes to organize it all up front, but spend the time. Yeah.
They don't let us, and one of the reasons I know that is they don't let us, for your speaker, we can't sign up for sessions or anything to attend. So we always end up like in that mode where you're like, oh, I want to go see this session. And it's like, well, it's full. It's like, oh, then run over to this session. It's like, but there's no reason if you're an attendee, you can sign up for everything well ahead of time and have everything nailed down.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to the party this year because one of the entertaining things that there's a chain smokers, which I've actually I think I've seen them before in Vegas and they're pretty good. Is there another like headline act as well in that evening?
Maroon 5.
Maroon 5, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just Adam Levine or if the whole band. It's
Last time I saw Maroon 5 was Maroon 1.
I think he might be bringing the other 4 this time around. So
Okay.
the full 5.
Jeremy's asking if we're having a secret Ekahau party. No secret, just come by the Ekahau booth and we'll make it a party anytime.
There's always a party going on there.
Matt's handing out his
bringing the
credit
In-N-Out
card.
burger.
Anything you want.
Okay, Stu, Dale, did we want to answer? I think did you mark any questions in the Q&A that we wanted to try and get through quickly?
Sure, I'll ask two questions centered or geared towards the Cisco guys in particular. But which AP model do you recommend or models that do support ultra wideband for outdoors? That's one of the questions. And the other one is what is the target number of clients per AP that Cisco uses in the world of solutions in particular?
So I'll address the first one first. There's not ultra wideband for outdoors. Ultra wideband by nature is a fairly dense. It's something that you wouldn't like. Typically, in your outdoors, you place access points pretty far apart. So ultra wideband just would not be effective in that location. So we didn't put ultra wideband, at least initially, in those outdoor access points. Maybe some of that will change over time as we adopt, ultra wideband as an architecture and get more applications and stuff like that around it. But for
I'd be
today,
curious, Hal, what that guy was or girl or whoever was thinking about, because if you're outside, I got GPS, right? Or
yeah.
GNSS. So maybe the application was really high precision. You needed sub 1 meter, but you didn't get that with RTK and GPS. So I'm curious, maybe in the chat window you could type in what you're thinking about there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Let's see. And then what was the second question? I forgot now.
Yeah, so in the world of solutions, the target
Oh.
number of clients per AP that Cisco uses.
It's really hard to say target number of clients because you don't really know what the density. And if there's an event going on, something can really get a lot of people in one area for a particular. So we tend to kind of do it almost like a per square feet, and so you'll see an AP about every 35 feet on center. So, and it's kind of a diamond, or if you turn it sideways, it's a square kind of shape. And the other thing you'll see is that some of the distances vary because if you move it down, then your pattern shrinks, and so the access points would have to be a little bit closer together than if you're on the higher ceiling. So, but in general, with the higher ceilings in that 45 feet kind of range, they're generally about 35 feet on center, something like that. So.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show, and very much looking forward to seeing you in a little over a week's time in Vegas for Cisco Live, and hopefully a few guys and girls from the webinar today will bump into them at Cisco Live as well. So hopefully there's a good amount of insights you gained for such large events, and yeah, looking forward to seeing some of you there. And thank you again, Ian, Dan, and Al, for your time today.